Ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon to all of you, and Honourable Minister Mantashe Nkwati. Let me just say that from my side, great that you're here, and we've come a long way from the days of 606 as the Chamber of Mines to the days of being the Minerals Council, 19 Beerman Avenue, Rosebank. Lots of change over that time, Minister, I must say. The Minister keeps on reminding me that when we are challenging him and giving him a hard time, that we're the Chamber of Mines, and when we're working constructively and etc., we're the Minerals Council. So I often get asked, are you the Minerals Council today or the Chamber of Mines? It's quite an interesting juxtaposition. But Minister, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to just to observe all the protocols. To the Minerals Council President, Nolita Fakode. Nolita, thank you. To our office bearers, it's been a great year that's gone past from the Minerals Council perspective, from a leadership perspective, to our member company CEOs, members of the board of the Minerals Council, to all the respective leadership from the DMRE, that's the Director General, Jacob Mbele, to the Deputy Director Generals, to the Chief Inspector of Mines, to the two special advisors that are sitting in the front row here, to senior colleagues, to organized labor, to our former office bearers and CEOs. There's a couple that will be in shortly, and to members of the media that are very much part of the mining community. Good afternoon to all of you, and thank you for joining us at our 133rd AGM. I would just highlight that in 1889, the Minerals Council, the Chamber of Mines budget, as it was called then, was £4,000, and they were dealing with some interesting issues. They were dealing with shortages of electricity. They were dealing with some challenges on the regulatory front, but I won't go into any of the detail. But now I just say that we are dealing with some really substantive issues that we need to tackle. And my special thanks to Nolita for the important insights into the mining industry's increasingly important role, not only in the economy, but also in society more broadly, and to ensure that we continue to hashtag making mining matter. I think a lot of people don't appreciate that you cannot achieve the Paris ambition of 2050 without significant increases in mining activity and investment over time. It's our role as the industry, working closely with government, organized labor, and other partners and stakeholders, to make sure that we do it within an EESG framework. And when I use the E squared framework, I'm talking about you can't have any of the environmental, social, or governance outcomes if you don't have the economic sustainability outcomes. EESG is what it's all about. It's not ESG, colleagues and ladies and gentlemen. We're going to continue as the Minerals Council putting our mantra first, which is be the change that you want to see in the world. Minister, you've said this to me before. The industry doesn't criticize. We constructively criticize, and then we come with solutions. Because there's no point in putting the problems on the table without being part of the solutions. And I think it's been a really important change in a little bit of our ethos from the Minerals Council side to let's be the change that we want to see in the world, using that famous Gandhi quote that we've been driving. So we like to be solutions driven in the way that we tackle particular issues. Thank you for your great leadership, friendship, selfless contribution, your wise and insightful counsel through 2022, Nolita, which has been, and to the other office bearers, which has been a challenging year for the country and for the industry. I certainly welcome Nambasa Tsengwa into the office bearer group. She joins us at a time of change, and her leadership and her ability to decipher things and extract what we should do from a solutions perspective is going to be fantastic. My thanks also to the astute leadership and guidance of all the other office bearers, Paul Dunn, Themba Mkhwanazi, Peter Steenkamp, and even some of our former office bearers who now no longer in the office bearer role, who've consistently and continued to provide us with inputs along the years. I'm very pleased to say that the President has agreed to an extra term. Nolita, thank you. Really important to have that continuity of leadership with all the other office bearers. And I know that that'll be invaluable to the incoming Chief Executive, Mzila Mthanjani. And Mzila I've known for a long time. I think he's a very capable person, a really committed South African, and I think he's going to make a great job of taking the Minerals Council up to the next level. The Minerals Council did implement its board-approved strategic plan in the last year. We don't do anything unless we've got the permission of our members through our board. We've tackled the many challenges in the year past, and in particular, focused on the solutions. Substantial industry leadership and industry was continued to be channeled through the Minerals Council, directly by the companies. And let's face it, let's take an area like safety, where our safety initiatives, working in partnership with government, organized labor, and I'm looking at David here in particular, we were able to make it the safest year in the recorded history of South Africa's mining sector, which is quite an achievement, but still sad from the fact that 49 people didn't get home to be with their families. But our quest for zero harm and zero fatalities will continue. It's a leadership imperative. We recorded the first month with zero fatalities in January 2023 in the recorded history of the industry. So we know it can be done. And in the first half of 2022, we achieved zero fall of ground fatalities in deep level gold and deep level platinum. That is an incredible achievement. But that was done because of the partnership approach to dealing with health and safety at an industry level. So just want to say thank you to the DMRE and to our labor colleagues. And I've sat in many tripartite forums. Just last week, I was involved in the Harmony Tripartite Forum with Peter, just to illustrate the commitment that the industry leadership has working with the trade unions to really drive the changes that we need. As I prepare to end my term as CEO of the Minerals Council, this remarkable milestone is one that I regard personally as really important, and that the leadership journey will continue. When I first joined the Minerals Council, which was the then Chamber of Mines, Minister, 606, in case you're wondering, there was a room called 606 where the wage negotiations used to take place. So, hence the reference between the minister and myself on 606. I was a junior economist, by the way, when I first joined. There were 551 fatalities in that year. So it's quite incredible, the journey that we've come on, and it's through the leadership commitment and partnership that we have with government that we've been able to do to achieve the outcome. We've also done a lot of work on improving health in the industry. And let's face it, this was one sector that really managed COVID well, but we did it because we did it in partnership with government. We're not yet at our goal of zero harm, but we have proved that we're able to make our industry safer, and we'll continue to focus on it. In terms of fall of ground fatalities, I just want to make the point that we did cut last year falls of ground fatalities by over 73%, and that's through the adoption of leading practice adopted and implemented in the mining companies themselves. And the issue for us remains, how do we sustain the progression? I will often ask my colleagues, how can you, where you have challenges with someone being transported from their home area to a work area where they get in a taxi, which is unroadworthy, which drives too fast, is overloaded, its brakes don't work, and then you expect that worker, you expect he or she to arrive at the mine gate and then suddenly have a completely different mindset. We need to do a lot of work also in our communities about how we improve the general health and safety issues that work in communities. Collaboration, trust, and cooperation are fundamental building blocks in our quest to ensure that every employee returns home safely every night. And most importantly, we know, and we're fully in sync with making sure that workers understand that they have the right to refuse dangerous work, and that we must work together to make the industry safer. Significant progress has been made on the health front, where we've got our TB rates below the national average. And the sector continues to implement our Masoyisi ETB program and our Masoyisi healthcare program, where, again, Minister, colleagues, if we look at what we're doing in terms of mental health, lifestyle diseases, etc., the industry is playing a leadership role again at a country level. The drive for diversity and inclusion has continued very strongly in the sector through the implementation of our Women in Mining strategy. There are now 72,500 women in the industry compared to 50,000 just a couple of years ago. So we have made some progress. Remember, the industry made the commitment to try and achieve a doubling of the number of women in the sector by 2025, and that was 5 years ago. So we're roughly on target towards achieving that, but there's a lot of work being done to make mining an industry which is attractive for women to work in. And Nolita did talk a bit about that. We've done a lot of work on addressing legacy issues. For example, with the Minerals Council support, the Medical Bureau for Occupational Diseases and the Compensation Commissioner for Occupational Diseases achieved a clean audit. We provided a lot of work in there. At the same time, the industry was able to save over R1 billion in levies through a revaluation of the fund and through the complete tidy up of the 900,000 case backlog that we had in the MBOD. Again, that was testament to the work of the industry through the Minerals Council and our collaboration with government on resolving particular issues. We continue to shape the national discourse to enable the most substantial structural reforms in the past 2 decades, and that included a significant amount of engagement with the DMRE in terms of encouraging private sector investment in energy. We saw obviously those reforms enunciated by the state president, His Excellency President Ramaphosa, on the 27th of July last year. And we've got this committee, NECOM, which is working, and we're involved in the 8 different structures of that. We also have a B4SA process and a number of other structures where the industry, working with other business sectors, is really collaborating and partnering with government on resolving the particular challenges. We've also got over 7.5 gigawatts of projects. There's 9 gigawatts of private sector projects, of which 7.5 gigs are in the mining sector. And the Minerals Council, again, working with government, has helped unlock that investment potential. But there's still constraints in place. Minister, they're not in the DMRE. They are in the transmission network and a few other places, and we're working hard to resolve those. The Council has invested significant effort with members in engaging Transnet on the rail and ports catastrophe. It's not a crisis, it's a catastrophe. And as my office bearer, Temba Mkhonazi, says, you know, when your heartbeat of your economy is weak because Eskom's not able to generate the amount of electricity, and when the logistics system, which is your vascular system, is blocked, it basically means that the body of the economy is in the intensive care unit. And we can certainly play a role in unblocking the vascular system through putting in private sector stents and using private sector defibrillator to get Eskom's heartbeat to restart. So it was actually even part of our earlier board discussion a bit earlier. So having the state presidents announced National Logistics Crisis Committee, that's critical to drive through the structural reforms that are needed, particularly the rail policy white paper. And we have been working through a recovery steerco with Transnet's board to try and get some traction, and I use that word very advisedly, in our rail, trying to stabilize rail performance, which has been a real big challenge for the sector. Remember that we account for nearly 80% of Transnet Freight Rail's business and 50% of Transnet's group revenue. And in the past year, the sector, between targets versus actual performance, lost 50 billion in revenue. But that's not the real cost. The real cost to the country is 150 billion in forfeited mineral exports if we had been operating those rail facilities at nameplate or enhanced nameplate capacity. So these numbers are big. Whenever Minister Godongwana sees me, he has a big smile on his face, but he often asks me the question, Roger, how are we going to fix the rail crisis? I keep on telling him it's a catastrophe, not a crisis. But the point behind that is that getting Treasury alone last year would have got 27 billion in extra taxes if we'd been able to export the 150 billion more that the industry potentially could have. At the moment, many of our companies are having to stockpile on the bulk side their production, having to scale back in their production, and you can see that being reflected in mining production numbers. And unfortunately, that has implications for the sustainability of companies in the bulk commodity exporting sector. So the consolidated urgent action from government, we hope will take place through this National Logistics Crisis Committee. And in particular, the private sector can bring a huge amount of skills and capacity to the equation, working in partnership with government to help really change the game. Another big area of focus of the Minerals Council in the last year, unsurprisingly, has been the national security crisis affecting the mining sector, including the impacts of product theft, illegal mining, attack by armed gangs on precious metals facilities, and obviously the activities of the procurement mafia, which have not only had an impact on our procurement in the sector itself, but in terms of also even coal supplies to Eskom, affecting a certain amount of the load shedding that we're all experiencing right now. And together with organized business, including BUSA, Business Leadership South Africa, we've been working with government, and more recently there's been agreement on a focus on that area to address the security and crime-related issues. On a different note, we have been really driving our modernization, research, development, and innovation collaborative efforts with government. Just to highlight that the program that we've done so far has invested over R500 million in collaborative RD&I, and that's working with the CSR, the Department of Science and Innovation, through the Mandela Mining Precinct, and good progress has been made on the critical pillars of RD&I, with focus on some really interesting projects which are having a material impact on the sector. We've seen the work on digital twin models for mines, advanced ore body knowledge, which in particularly deep level operations is really useful, particularly for predicting seismic activity and extending the lives of existing large scale and deep operations. So into my last couple of sections here, as expected, the Council continued to engage government on all the relevant policy and regulatory issues. We want to continue to promote smart tape, reduce red tape, improve the competitiveness of the policy and regulatory regime for exploration and mining. The DMRE has adopted issued an RFP for a new online off-the-shelf system, Minister. We're looking forward. End of May is today, so hopefully the DG will tell us maybe later how that whole process has gone. What's important about it is having an efficient, transparent online cadastral system will really help speed up the entire regulatory system. And we're excited by the fact that we hope to see the results now, and it's really important from an industry level that we make progress in that area. There are certain backlogs that the DMRE has been engaging us on, and that's related to various rights, etc. But those are areas which are part of a more focused task team that we've set up. Unfortunately, South Africa did slip down the Fraser Institute survey rankings in 2022. The issue of security and crime challenges and infrastructure actually were two of the biggest burning issues. And I'd just like to highlight to you, those are areas which have received a huge amount of our attention. And so following some recent detailed meetings with the DMRE Director General, DG Mbele, and his entire leadership team, including the Chief Inspector that's here, we've had a really detailed discussion on focusing on the 4 to 5 critical priority areas which require revision and reform, and which will help us improve the country's ranking. So I'm certainly been working hard to try and create the space and the platform for my successor to really help drive that agenda, working very closely with the DMRE. I can confidently say that the Minerals Council stood up and was counted in all the critical debates in 2022 and continue to properly represent the interests of members and to drive the agenda of #Making Mining Matter. Thanks very much to the Mineral Council office bearers, Nolita in particular, and all the office bearers, to the board of the Minerals Council, who've kept me on my toes pretty much for the last 9 years. And on a personal note, I'd like to say to all of you farewell. After nearly 3 decades in the industry, I'm not leaving the mining sector. I'm not leaving South Africa. It's been a privilege and a deep honor to have been entrusted with the leadership of the Minerals Council over the past 9 years. There is a very solid platform with excellent office bearer leadership, a great internal team, a determination to help the country prosper, and an industry that really does matter for South Africa. And then on my last note is just to say thanks very much to my own internal management and leadership team and to the entire Minerals Council staff, 63 of them, half of them focused on health and safety in the industry, the other half on making the industry a better place and to help it to contribute more meaningfully to the country and to work with government to really drive the changes. So it's been a real privilege and a pleasure, and thank you.